The mountain guides of the German Bundeswehr. They are among the best elite units worldwide for operations in high-altitude terrain. To survive in these regions, they must complete one of the toughest training programs in the Bundeswehr. Temperatures reach -30 degrees Celsius, wind speeds soar to 120 kilometers per hour, and they operate on peaks up to 5,000 meters.
I think they'll be relieved when this is over. I doubt they're really enjoying it here.
In the next 9 months, these men must climb the equivalent altitude of summiting Mount Everest 10 times. Their motto, at any time of year, in any terrain, on rock, ice, and snow, in peace and in action.
Der Leitsatz ihres Handelns ist immer, vor sich selbst bestehen zu können. Doch um in diese Eliteeinheit aufgenommen zu werden, müssen die Soldaten noch einen anstrengenden Weg gehen.
In the Carvendal barracks in Mittenwald, Bavaria, 11 out of 18 men made it into the course. Among them is the young Staff Sergeant Slavomir Bloss, the experienced Sergeant Major Jens Wagner, and the newly minted father, Captain Peter Baumert. The ambitious Captain Jan Schumacher is also pushing through the grueling course. Training Supervisor Grillhosel welcomes the soldiers to the winter segment of the course. The ski test is scheduled.
So, this is the day we've been working towards for the last 6 weeks. Today is the technical exam as part of the DSV instructor exam. We will examine the 4 technical forms and the free descent at the Stubai Glacier. We will do the briefing when we are on site, usual procedure, picking up lift tickets at the bottom, then the last instructions and measures up on the glacier, when we start the exam and especially where we start the exam. I can only say one thing. I wish everyone a successful day today, and I assume that everyone will do their best. So that when we return this afternoon, that we all have satisfied faces and good grades on paper. Occupy vehicles. Order. First instructor vehicle, then the training group. Mount up.
The soldiers are driving to the Stubai Valley, almost 70 kilometers away. Already during the entrance exam, the participants revealed significant weaknesses in skiing.
There's quite a bit of tension. You can feel that today. It's the decisive day with the technical forms and the free descent. But that's also a good thing. A certain level of tension during a test is always fine. Let's see how the conditions are. It's going to be exciting now. Whether it's too hard, or maybe a bit soft today because of the snow. We'll see that when we're up there. And skiing skills, they are essential for a mountain guide when we eventually start ski touring in March and move into ski mountaineering. So we can safely descend steep slopes. A mountain guide must be able to ski. That's quite clear.
And Grillhosel wants to see that directly. Steep slopes with rocky sections are terrain for Army mountain guides. Here, the soldiers must come down safely. If they can't manage that, they have no place in the elite unit. Some have improved a lot, others not. The trainers are tough, but fair.
I think that most of them haven't driven off-road that often yet. You can just see how they adjust to the skis, to the type of snow. But I'm just not overly negative. I think we'll manage it.
Will Grillhosel be proven right? The participants are doing their best but remain skeptical. After all, the toughest part of the exam is yet to come.
I think it's a 50-50, partly positive, partly negative. Personally, I didn't feel like I drove all that well, but I feel like some rides went quite good for me. I hope it's enough. My feelings are mixed for sure. I hope that it was enough. Now we have to focus on the last descent. And if that goes well too, then we will have successfully ended the day. Hopefully. Well, I have to say, I do have a bit of a queasy feeling in my stomach. Although an exam situation is always an uncomfortable thing, you drive a bit more tensely, a bit more nervously than when you drive freely. And you probably remain a bit below your potential. You also want to avoid a crash and so on.
But it will be intense, a timed ski race, measured against the instructor's time.
The external conditions are great. We have really good weather. The slope is perfectly prepared. The course has just been set. We tried to create a relatively fair course, but it is still challenging. Currently, it's course inspection. And then it starts with 2 scoring runs for the training participants. I don't think the nervousness can increase much more than it is now. They are really at their limit. 6 weeks of ski training, and today is the final exam day. And it really has to work out. I don't think an increase is possible anymore. I am pretty nervous, I have to say. But we just have to make the best of it.
Now there's only one thing that matters, getting down the slope as quickly as possible. Bloss reached the finish line. Will this run be enough? Schumacher is up next. Wagner is considered one of the fastest. He was in the national team of Nordic combined athletes. The trainers expect a top time from him. Wagner races down the slope. He will make a good time, but will it be enough for the instructor's time?
That's it for the DSV instructor. Done, finished, 6 weeks through. You don't need to ask me now about the times and grades. I just phoned the times into the barracks. Shubi is calculating it. The grades will be ready by the time we arrive at the barracks. I am very curious about the result, because nothing has been revealed yet. For some, it might get a bit tighter, and they will probably be quite glad when it's finally over.
Insgesamt hat sie gepasst. War gut. Super, gratuliere. Danke. Fragen? Keine Fragen. Gut, dann schicken wir den nächsten rein. Aber das brauchen wir nicht diskutieren, weil es war so, wie es war und es hat gepasst und Sie haben es bestanden und Gratulation und Ende. Okay? Dann machen wir das.
You have the best practical grade, the best athletic grade, and the best technical grade. It was actually clear from the beginning that it would end well. Practical grades are fine. Everything looks good.
Denk mal, dass wir auf dieser Leistung hier jetzt gut aufbauen können.
Auf jeden Fall.
Sind Sie jetzt froh?
Da fällt mir schon eine Last von den Schultern, muss ich ganz ehrlich sagen. Ey. Hat mir ein paar graue Haare gekostet, dieser Instructor.
Das wissen wir.
Das weiß ich auch. Super. Freut mich. Voll.
Now we can put the normal skis in the basement and take out the cross-country skis. Now a new chapter is opened in winter.
The new chapter is called Ski High Tours. But first, the soldiers will have to learn how to rescue people buried in an avalanche. The greatest helper in this is a search dog for people.
Today we are here at the Zugspitze Plateau at nearly 3,000 meters altitude. We are currently in Mountain Rescue Week. This means we conduct both improvised and planned winter mountain rescue operations. Today, the focus is on planned avalanche rescue. We have a handler from Mountain Rescue Bavaria with us, and we will now practice searching for avalanche victims with an avalanche dog in the morning, so that the course participants simply know what is important when working with avalanche dogs. Also in this section, it is now important for the course participants not to make any mistakes on the avalanche field. Because when the dog is on the avalanche field, it is a very sensitive animal. And certain things need to be considered to ensure that everything fits, so that the dog's sense of smell is not disturbed.
One of the soldiers simulates being injured and lets himself be buried under nearly 1.5 meters of dense snow. Not a risk-free task.
Spending around 2 to 3 hours in there is actually normal. So make sure people can handle it and choose carefully who to put in there, because it can quickly become a problem.
A 2-square-meter hole under the snow. A deadly trap if something goes wrong. The soldiers shovel the hole closed again and receive another briefing from the dog handler. He explains to the soldiers that they have to be very careful when working with the dog and must first let the dog onto the avalanche field alone. Any contamination with scents would make the work more difficult for the dog. The detection dog begins the search. Quickly, it discovers a trail and signals by digging that there must be someone buried here. The soldiers eagerly watch the dog's reaction. First, a so-called probe, a thin rod, is carefully poked through the snow cover to feel if there is indeed someone lying beneath the snow cover. When the buried person is located, it is important to dig quickly but carefully. Being hit by an avalanche means a massive weight on the victim's body. Bone fractures are the norm.
The soldier under the snow cover will soon be relieved.
The task is successfully completed for the sniffer dog, but the injured person is not rescued yet. Now the real work of the Army Mountain Guides begins. Instructor Rieger explains what needs to be done now.
What do we do first? Check his breathing. Does he have a breathing barrier or not? The dangerous thing about an avalanche, when you're caught in it, for us skiers and ski tourers, it's usually snow slab avalanches. It's simply the mechanical injury. That means when the avalanche goes off, then I slide with the avalanche, get swept along, and I might hit rocks, trees, and obstacles, causing mechanical injuries like a broken neck, arm, or whatever. When the avalanche comes to a stop, if I'm still alive, then the second big step is, so to speak, which is important, that I have an air pocket, so that I don't, in a manner of speaking, suffocate. Under 35 minutes or no breathing cavity, start resuscitation immediately. If it's over 35 minutes, we make sure to get a doctor. If in doubt, we resuscitate.
Once the injured person is treated and stable, it is important to get him off the mountain quickly and safely. In heavy snowfall, rescue by helicopter is impossible, so the soldiers need to build a stretcher and transport the injured person through deep snow and steep slopes. A real challenge. Quickly but carefully, they transport the injured person away. The soldiers have successfully completed this part of the training. What they learned is important. The next phase of training will introduce the participants to one of the greatest dangers in the mountains. In the snowy peaks of the German Alps, they will have to trigger avalanches using explosives. The soldiers are brought to their starting point, a snow-covered hut high up in the mountains, by helicopter. In winter, it is nearly the only way to transport people and materials to such heights.
We are here in the Wetterstein Mountains at the Stulpenhütte at 1,635 meters. This week, we are doing the section on jumping from snowfields. And today, we are bringing people into the snowfields by helicopter. They will be lowered with a winch, and we will use PTN or Ladin explosives to create an avalanche release. The purpose and intent of this whole story is that the Army Mountain Guide knows in the future and is able to blast snowfields. This is important for tactical deployment. For example, if I have to move a troop from point A to point B, the route passes through an avalanche-prone area, and the entire stretch needs to be cleared with explosions so that I can use this space tactically.
The soldiers prepare the explosives. Several kilograms are needed for one charge. Master Sergeant Wagner carefully assembles the explosive device.
I'm preparing a throw charge here. We have basically placed about 5 kilos of Latin explosive here. It's used to apply it onto the snowfield with the throw charge so that it doesn't roll away and explodes directly on the snowfield. I will be dropped from the helicopter onto the snowfield, where it, dropped off by the wind, is placed directly on the snowfield. The entire snow slender over there we will blow up later, or at least try to. And then simply to the right, the individual snowfields, which are also interspersed with rocks downwards. There we will also try to blow them out and then lower the individual people down.
The soldiers are briefly instructed at the helicopter before they set off. In flight maneuvers, special caution is always advised.
We in the military do this so that we can make terrain accessible in the high mountains in winter. That means, for example, in Afghanistan, some path from A to B is avalanche-prone. I have to go there with a reconnaissance team, with a company, but it's avalanche-prone. Then the Army Mountain Guide is deployed, is brought there, he assesses the situation, and then he must be able to work with the machine. We already trained this in the summer, so he must be capable of working with the helicopter, directing the helicopter, working with the winch. And then comes the explosives. It's not quite so pleasant to fly with explosives and then hang on a winch with all the explosives. But the course participants will do that today.
The pilots start the 1,400 horsepower machine and begin the approach to the 2,600-meter high peak. At icy temperatures, the soldiers fly with open doors towards the intended demolition targets. Bloss is the first one who has to detonate today. The communication between him and the pilot is very important. The onboard mixer will lower him with the winch and ensure that he safely returns on board. With 5 kilograms of explosives under his arm, Bloss gets ready to rappel down. Almost 40 meters above the snowfield, the pilot holds the helicopter as steady as possible. Bloss carefully lowers himself down. Always be mindful of helicopters, mountains, and of course the explosives. He must avoid starting to spin due to the downdrafts. Once at the bottom, the task is to place the explosive beak. Not an easy task on the slippery snowfield and with the strong downdraft from the rotors. The charge is placed and detonated. The explosion will occur in 4 minutes. Bloss gives the signal to ascend. The pilot tries to leave the danger zone as quickly as possible, regardless of whether Bloss is already in the machine or not. But blasting is only moderately successful. Only small snow slabs detach from the mountain. Not to be underestimated, even these amounts can kill people. The next participant is up. It will be one after another. As long as there is flying weather, flights will continue. A challenge for both humans and machines. The helicopter has been in use for over 40 years. Everyone must concentrate on their work. The smallest mistakes are not allowed in such exercises. The same procedure. Approach. Rappel. Place the load. Leave the danger zone as quickly as possible. The soldier is still hanging far below the machine when the pilot already starts at full throttle. This time the detonation has more effect. Hundreds of tons of snow rush down the slopes at speeds of up to 200 kilometers per hour. A destructive force for anything and anyone in its path. The following detonations are also successful. The triggered avalanches clearly demonstrate the danger posed by avalanches and the destructive power they contain. The soldiers are impressed. They face this danger almost daily in their job as elite soldiers.
We blew up 100 kilograms today, blasted the whole mountain. I think we also got quite a bit out today. Some got more, others less, depending on the snow thickness and terrain. But you think the snow flanks, quite a bit has already gone away, with some other risky areas, from 50 to 80 meters wide. I think that the combination of flying helicopters and carrying a lot of explosives might have caused some uneasy feelings. But that's what I think mainly. Everyone particularly enjoyed lowering themselves down, hanging 20 meters beneath the helicopter on the winch in a huge snowfield, snow slab, and securing everything there. That was really nice. Yes, so the cheerfulness that has now bloomed a little here is, of course, between reaching goal 1. The winter part consists of these 2 hurdles. One was the DSV instructor. The second part will start again in 2 weeks, and I think it'll intensify the tension, nervousness, but also the difficulty and uncertainty because terrain, weather, and visibility conditions are things you can't control. Overall, I liked what the course participants did. We also did everything correctly. The blasting day is now over. What was important? Quite simply, we had to combine, carry out training demolitions, and work with the helicopter, and assess the training on avalanche danger. When I combine the components, then I am able to detonate snowfields. That worked very well today.
The last and also hardest test day is still to come. In Andermatt, Switzerland, the task is to apply everything learned in ski mountaineering and to lead one's comrades safely through the snowy mountains. Here, any of the soldiers can also fail.
The main problem in winter is that the mainstay is the ski mountaineering stay, and it lasts for 3 weeks. And everything is tested there. And this ski high-altitude tour stay is not sometime in the summer, and the appointment as a mountain guide is sometime next year. but this stay is shortly before the HBF appointment. That means nerves are usually frayed, because it's simply about will I be appointed or not? And the pressure is already high. Physically, Andermatt is very demanding due to the ski tours we do, and then also mentally with all the exams, the assessments, written tests, and so on. I believe that the stay in Andermatt will be the hardest for the course participants.
Let's get to the guided tour today, the 26th of March, on the Kristallina. We just showed it at 2,911.7.
Schumacher must prove today that he is suitable to be a mountain leader in the army.
Actually, I'm not really nervous right now. I'm well prepared. It will definitely be a nice tour. Let's see what comes of it.
The conditions for Schumacher and his comrades are ideal. In good weather, he leads his troop through the deep snow. He has chosen an exhausting route, but Schumacher is fit and wants to prove to the instructors that he is ready to become an army mountain guide. Instructor Rieger repeatedly includes intermediate tests.
Guess he's building an igloo now. We're doing a small block test right now because we have quite a lot of new snow and quite a bit of compacted one too. And we haven't really been in that area yet. And he's basically doing a cystiatic snow diagnosis. That means he checks if there are any weak layers inside this block that we can trigger.
Das bedeutet für mich im weiteren Vorgehen, dass ich auf jeden Fall einen leicht gebundenen Schnee habe, aber eher Tendenz auch noch zu weich. Es ist aber trotzdem mit einer Schneebrettlawine zu rechnen.
Wir bauen doch kein Iglo. Wir gehen jetzt doch weiter.
Schumacher has learned a lot in recent months and has his ambition under control. He makes the right decisions and continually motivates his comrades on the way to the summit. Instructor Rieger can be very satisfied with him. The first interim goal is almost reached.
All right, since we have good weather luck today and want to take advantage of it, and also want to gain a few more meters in altitude, we are now moving on to the next summit on the piano, more precisely known as Ponzione Valpiana, at an elevation of 2,660 meters. We are currently at an elevation of 2,458 meters.
Schumacher is motivated.
With Captain Schumacher, it's like this. He is an incredibly ambitious course participant. However, it must be said that it is a healthy ambition, and Jan Schumacher is truly wholeheartedly involved.
The last few meters to the summit. Mobilize all your energy reserves once more.
Okay, so listen up. We've reached our first intermediate destination, the piano summit. From here on out, we'll be shown the terrain, descend into the valley, and traverse out.
Schumacher has delivered an almost perfect leadership tour. Instructor Rieger is satisfied. Such descents are the reward for the hardships of the last 8 months. Schumacher has passed his final exam. He is close to being admitted to the elite unit. However, he does not yet feel euphoria.
I have to say, it was really a nice tour today. At the start, unexpectedly sunny. Now, at the end, the weather is a bit worse. I actually wanted it to clear up by noon. The tour itself was nice at the beginning this morning with great snow conditions. It was really deep to make tracks today. On the descent, it wasn't as nice at the bottom.
Back at the barracks, the evaluation with Instructor Rieger follows immediately. For Baumert, on the other hand, it is important to prepare the tour for tomorrow.
Let's proceed to the briefing for tomorrow. We have 2 summit ascents, one to the Nockberg at 2,074 meters, and the other to the Mutterlichhorn at 3,058 meters. And that's actually just the smallest part. The preparation is now, of course, continuing for me, until late in the evening, and then we'll see how tomorrow turns out.
The next morning, there is bad weather. Baumert will be challenged on his last guided tour.
Well, nervousness is usually adjusted to the situation. I try to do it more by feel. If it gets steeper, go a little slower. If it's flatter, you can cover a few meters well. That's the time you gain there. And so, you have a good feeling in the body, and you don't go too slowly on the flat and maybe start to cool down. Nervousness, yes, especially before receiving orders. You just have to gather all the information first. There isn't much time. The actual work begins afterwards, but I'm feeling all right now. I was a bit nervous the night before, but once you approach the tour now, it actually goes quite well.
In poor visibility, Baumert leads his comrades up the icy slopes. Instructor Grillhosel, however, has some surprises in store for him.
Und ich will wissen, auf der Karte gezeigt, den Ausläufer von dem Grad auf der Karte gezeigt.
Ausläufer, okay.
Okay. Und den Blaubergstock, die Ausläufer. Und als Draufgabe den Schafberg. Okay?
Okay.
Orientation is extremely important in the mountains. In dense fog, Baumert is trying to locate the points required by Grillhosel.
An independent location is right here. We're line 2,600 in this stream course at this rock nose, which we can see. That's basically the terrain here, up inside here. It's important to say, if I'm not familiar with the area, I must drive down with the GPS device, because I won't be able to get out of this huge valley. I think it's going pretty well so far. We had the climb down below, but you have to say the terrain to the exit was relatively crappy. Still very icy, south-facing, hairpin, slipped a bit. So I found my own way, away from the tracks. And finally, up to Schafberg, the weather picked up. That's why I walked a bit faster, because it got a bit colder. But in terms of orientation and the last descent, it was really good. I think the boss liked it too, and hopefully we'll have similar conditions on the north descent.
So far, Baumert's guided tour is going well. The orientation task was not easy, but he solved it despite very poor visibility. However, the weather is getting worse. Baumert must now make the right decisions.
Up there, 20 meters visibility, completely unknown terrain, extremely steep slopes. He made a quick assessment of the avalanche situation. The wind is getting worse and finds its way down right at this point here, where the junction is, where our second ascent would actually begin. Then he suggests that we go down, which is absolutely right. I consider it that it makes no sense to go further. We have another steep climb and then have to descend over the northern flank, which drops down at up to 45 degrees through rocky terrain. With the visibility, we would probably only get injured. We can see how the rocks are sticking out everywhere, and if we can't see and recognize them, we'll just leave it be. And I am glad that I have the people down here now. But we also have to say, this is really beyond the comfort zone where we are operating. But that's where we want the people to be. That's where the mountain guide has to go, and he has to keep a cool head, apply what he's learned, make the right decisions, and lead from the front. I have to say honestly, Baumert did an awesome job.
But Grillhossel still has a surprise for the soldiers. He wants to really challenge Baumert with an unexpected incident.
Following situation, lower leg fracture, is treated, stable. No flying weather due to storm. Leader, take immediate action.
Jan, kannst du kein Ski fahren oder was?
Du mal Ski aushieling. Zack, Skieblocken, nichts mehr da. Kann ich Rucksack drauf? Ja.
Yes, the additional task will be set and must be completed. Ultimately, the leader in charge must organize it, solve this additional task, and those involved must naturally support. And yes, whether that is motivating or not, it must be completed because it contributes to the overall picture of the leadership tour.
The rescue of an injured comrade against time. Not far-fetched because in case of injuries in high mountains, it's often a matter of minutes. The soldiers have to improvise and build a means of transport. The injured person must be rescued quickly and safely. A popular additional task among the instructors. Grillhossel is a tough examiner.
Baumert, das ist Ihr Zusatzaufgabe, gell? Und die Zeit, wenn ich da drauf schaue, stimmt mich nicht zufrieden. Baumert, gib Gas. Es ist mir zu langsam. Okay, komm her.
Baumert has to hurry. If he doesn't pass the additional task, it could ruin the entire tour for him. Grillhossel's clock is ticking relentlessly.
Abholung in 5 Minuten am anderen Ende der Staumauer. Wenn er es schafft, Zeit läuft 4:58.
Grillhossel increases the pressure. He wants to see that the soldiers act correctly even in stressful situations. Once the injured person is secured, they must be transported away. At the end of an exhausting tour, an absolute challenge for Baumert and comrades. Grillhossel encourages his soldiers. Giving up is not an option. They have to give it their all one more time.
Okay, aufpasst. Gut. Gut.
They did it. Together. They are at the end of their strength, but satisfied.
Passt gut. Baut's ihn auseinander, packt das Zeug weg. Machen wir weiter.
Grillhossel is proud of his soldiers. They surely have learned a lot in the last 9 months.
Das sechst nicht. Voll in die Rinne rein. Scheiße. Aber Bergführergelände. Absolut. Geiler Hang. Da müssen Sie die Buben. Ja, schaut's auf. Fahren Sie wieder runter.
Baumert has chosen a spectacular slope for the final descent.
Gut, Baumert. Gut ausgesucht, Ihren. Respekt. Danke. Gut ausgesucht.
It's a bit of a pity. If the light were a bit better, one could have ridden a bit more aggressively. But it doesn't look bad overall. I would not have expected that. Untouched at the top, it was our or their gully. Yes, the activities, they really bring me joy, because you can see that the course participants work precisely. They have learned a lot. They are mature. They can become mountain guides. They're real men. That's good.
Baumert made it and can be proud of himself. It is the next day in the Swiss Alps. The last guided tour for Sergeant Major Wagner is on the schedule. He briefly goes through the tour with his comrades, and Grillhassel explains what he wants to see from him today.
Today, we have the first nice day again after a bit of fresh snowfall. The wind was very strong. We have a guided tour today. We're heading over to the Piz Centrale. It's basically the most central mountain in Europe, almost 3,000 meters. We'll then go down to the Vernagel hut and head over to the Pizzo Ravec. In total, it amounts to approximately 2,300 meters of elevation. We have an additional option to add a loop at the end. What does it depend on? The guide must now lead properly. They need to create a track system. They must assess the avalanche situation, and then also find a good descent and apply correctly executed risk management during the descent.
Under ideal conditions, Wagner leads his comrades and instructor Grillhassel up the snowy slopes. The correct route guidance and assessment of dangers is particularly important today. The weather can be very treacherous in the mountains. An icy wind comes up. Wagner knows what that means. A massive wall of clouds is approaching the soldiers. A change in the weather that can turn a leisurely tour into an absolute challenge. Warrant Officer Wagner has to make decisions. He leads his comrades directly into the cloud wall. Is that the right decision? In dense fog, he tries to keep his bearings. It continues only without skis now. Climbing in ski boots. But Wagner finds the right route. The veteran safely leads his team to the summit. The last few meters. They have reached the top. The soldiers tap the cairn. This is meant to bring good luck and remind them of fallen mountaineers. Wagner hopes to have never to rely on this luck. He prefers to depend on his skills. It looks as though he will complete his last tour.
But also the performance that Jens Wagner showed was absolutely great. We were clearly beyond the comfort zone with extremely bad weather, and he did it so confidently. I'm happy for the course participant, and I'm also happy for the entire training team. Because for us, these are like the fruits of success, seeing that after 8 months, some decent people have emerged.
Wagner and his comrades have made it. 9 months of physical and mental hard labor are behind them. One of the toughest courses in the German Bundeswehr is coming to an end. The final exam stay is completed. 100,000 meters in altitude have been overcome. Now, only a few meters to the appointment lie ahead of them.
This is probably the most demanding stay in the entire Army Mountain Guide course. It is the most challenging part, and it is right before the appointment. There are incredibly many exams, and the leadership tours are extremely demanding and exhausting. Above all, they are also very long. One thing is clear. After Andermatt, their energy is gone entirely. However, the course participants have shown very good performance throughout the entire course. I am very satisfied with the achievements demonstrated here, and am now glad that the course, the entire winter portion, is slowly coming to an end. I can still remember well when I was appointed an Army Mountain Guide almost 20 years ago, and I am sure that, due to the uniqueness of this training, the length of this training, the difficulty of this training, this ceremonial act is truly enjoyed by the course participants, that they will never forget it, and that it will always remain something very special in a soldier's military life.
However, not all participants made it. Captain Baumert is one of them.
It is, of course, very unfortunate for Baumert that he cannot be appointed. He will be there tomorrow and will be the only one who does not receive this badge.
Und dann freut es mich außerordentlich, Slavo. Und die Leistung war top. Sie kommen ja nochmal raus, Sie wissen es ja schon.
Ich weiß.
Super.
Vielen Dank.
Ja, bitte.
Hiermit ernenne ich den Hauptmann Jan Schumacher zum Heeresbergführer.
Alles super, freut mich.
Herr Oberstleutnant, Hauptmann Schumacher, melde mich ab.
It's a great moment when the whole family is standing there, and you are then awarded as the top of the class. It's a truly special moment.
Hiermit ernenne ich den Stabsfeldwebel Jens Wagner zum Heeresbergführer. Jens.
Super, Jens, freut mich.
Herr Oberstleutnant, Stabsfeldwebel Wagner, melde mich ab.
We have been together for 8 months now and have gone through thick and thin. And for me, it was important, and I told the course participants right at the beginning of the course, that we must manage to become a team. And when the appointment is made, this team building must be completed, and we must part ways as a team too. And a team always somehow stays connected. We have become a team during this course. I am absolutely sure of that. I would trust them blindly. We have trained them in 8 months, so I would go with them in any weather. Day and night, on ice, on rock, in snow, I will follow them blindly.